Greetings people, 'tis I, 480 Volts, and welcome back to another episode of 480 Reviews. Today we're talking about the third installment of the Crash Bandicoot series, Crash Bandicoot Warped. This game was released in 1998, which incidentally was the year I got my PlayStation 1. Now if you recall from my Crash 2 review, I said that was my favorite game of all time. A big reason why is due to the nostalgia I have with it. Since that's my number one favorite, obviously I don't like any other game I have talked or will talk about as much, including this one. In fact, this may be my least favorite of the original three. Don't get me wrong, I still love this game and have a huge amount of nostalgia for it as well, but I don't think it even makes my top 5. Regardless, let's take a look at what we're working with this time, starting with the story. As you may recall, the last game ended with the obliteration of the Cortex Vortex, Dr. Cortex's means for total world domination. This game opens with large chunks of the debris caught in Earth's gravitational pull come smashing down on the surface, more specifically, at the site of some ancient temple, reducing it to rubble. From the ruins, an evil spirit is seen fleeing the area, now laughingly proclaiming its freedom. I'm sure that's nothing to worry about, right? Well, it turns out that this evil spirit is the great Uka Uka, the twin brother of Aku Aku, our friendly little tiki mess that's been giving Crash extra hit points for the last 2 games. Not only that, but Cortex's previous attempts to conquer the world were directly under the instruction and order from Uka Uka. In other words, Cortex was merely a pawn. Eons ago, Aku Aku sealed his brother away in a temple prison, believing him to be a threat to the world. Thanks to our struggle with Cortex in the last game, he's footloose and fancy-free once again. The crystals and gems we collected in the previous game are now apparently scattered throughout different parts of the space-time continuum, and Uka Uka and Cortex have recruited a temporal scientist named Dr. Nefarious Tropy, who has constructed an elaborate time-traveling machine to retrieve the crystals. Aku Aku then brings Crash and his little sister Coco to the machine and instructs them to use it to try and retrieve the crystals first. And well, Crash and Coco do just that. They travel to different eras in time, collect crystals, take down Cortex's minions, and ultimately stand before the mad scientist himself, as well as the great Uka Uka. Upon being defeated, Uka Uka and Cortex announce that they are now going to search through time for the gems, as they are also a source of power. After collecting all 42 gems, Crash has one last scuffle with Uka Uka and Cortex, after which the time machine malfunctions horribly, creating a giant black hole that absorbs all matter around it. Crash manages to escape to safety, and then we see Uka Uka somewhere, somewhen, caught in a tug of war between Doctors Cortex and N-Tropy, who have now apparently been reduced in age to toddlers. On this rather comical note, the game ends. As usual, the story isn't really deep or important, but it does lend itself to some interesting gimmicks, most notably time travel. There are 25 main stages in the game, plus 3 secret stages and 2 ultra super secret stages, and they all take place in different times. We've got medieval castles with knights and wizards, the Arabian desert with genies and magic carpets, a tropical water coast with pirate ships, World War I with old aircraft, the Jurassic period with dinosaurs and proto-bandicoots, and of course, the future with all of its flashy lights and robots. However, there are a few settings that are not really period specific, such as the underwater stages, the racing stages, and even the Egyptian tomb stages, which look ancient enough, but considering that these are old tombs, it could technically take place in any time. I am somewhat confused as to why these ancient tombs have Cortex's name plastered throughout everywhere, or why the Sphinx itself is in Cortex's likeness. Did he go back and change history or something, or were the designers just so used to putting his face everywhere by now that they didn't stop to think about where they were putting it? Our cast of characters this time includes some new faces such as the great Uka Uka, as well as Dr. N-Tropy and Dingodile, new members of Cortex's team. Dingodile kinda comes out of nowhere, but his unusual biology, a hybrid between a dingo and a crocodile, suggests that he is possibly one of Cortex's test subjects from the Crash 1 days. Dr. N-Tropy is the creator of the Time Twister machine, the installation that allows us to traverse through time. We've also got some familiar faces such as Tiny the Tiger, who is apparently working for Cortex now, and Dr. N-Jin, who seems to be Cortex's most loyal and consistent lackey. I also like how our little polar bear cub from the last game is just chilling with Crash and Coco at the beginning and ending of this game. Oh, and remember the lab assistant? You know, that guy that appeared in a few stages towards the end of Crash 1 and a bit more frequently in Crash 2? Yeah, he's freaking everywhere and every when in this game. He appears in 10 different stage types, including the boss fight with Tiny, and has multiple forms, sometimes appearing in as many as 5 different forms in a single stage type. Knights, Chinese soldiers, pharaohs, genies, World War I pilots, some biological monstrosity with 2 heads, literally the entire crowd of spectators in the boss fight with Tiny, even undead mummies in the tomb stages. There's even a secret warp room you can access later in the game, and it is literally an assembly line of lab assistants being constructed, fitted for a specific time, and then deposited in said time. Oh, and by the way, let's show this clip from Crash 2. See that lab assistant right there? The one right there. This dude right here. Well, I played that game for almost 25 years and never once noticed him until I was editing my review of Crash 2 that I uploaded last year. How about that? It's kind of interesting to see Aku Aku as a character in this game. He actually talks and instructs us and seems more like some wise old mentor. Unfortunately, Coco has lost every bit of character she had in the previous game. Speaking of character, Cortex himself seems quite a bit different this time around. No longer does he come across as some power power-hungry scientist hell-bent on world domination. He's much more casual and unenthusiastic nowadays, like he can't be bothered to give a crap.
I'm sorry. This is the part where I'm supposed to be angry.
And this isn't the fault of the voice actor, this is literally how the character is written. It's like now that it's been revealed that Cortex has his own puppet master pulling his strings, he's not even going to act like he's in any kind of control. At the beginning we see Cortex brought to his knees for fear of his master's wrath, then for the rest of the game he's just sort of like, oh look, we're doing this thing again where I try to take over the world and you try to stop me. Yay.
Crash, 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 why must you always muck in my mud?
And as you progress further in the game, he continues like, oh, how about that? You're getting closer and closer, like you always do.
It's funny how history repeats itself. Yet again, N. Gin has failed to defeat you.
This guy has tried twice to take over the world and is blown up in his face both times thanks to Crash. He is tired. The only reason he's still going is because Uka Uka is behind him, pushing him like, no, we're doing this. We're taking over this world and you're gonna like it. Overall, the story does what it needs to do. The voice acting is quite good. Clancy Brown once again provides the voice of Dr. Neo Cortex as well as Uka Uka. As usual, his performance is perfect.
Crash Bandicoot for the last time! Give the crystals to me!
Coco does not utter so much as a squeak in this game, so no voice for her. Mel Winkler provides the voice of Aku Aku.
Uka Uka is free. No, it cannot be.
Dingodile's voice comes from William Hootkins.
Break out the butter. You're gonna make toast.
And Entropy is voiced by Michael Ensign.
Now you're on my time, you little skunk! Give me the crystals!
All of which sound great. Brendan O'Brien is the guy who really steals the show for me, not only reprising his role as N. Gin, but Tiny as well. His N. Gin voice has been given a bit more life with just a touch of sass to it.
So, you want to go a few rounds? When this is over, we'll see who's obsolete.
While his Tiny voice, well, I'm honestly just amazed that that's even him.
Crash! Leave them for Tiny, or Crash get crushed!
Seriously, that doesn't sound anything like the guy. I would have guessed Clancy Brown. Anyway, let's move on to gameplay. Crash handles and controls just like he did in the last game, except now the left analog stick works for those of you who care about that sort of thing. As a kid, my PS1 controllers never had analog sticks, so I will always play Crash with the D-pad. Crash is still rocking his moves and tricks from the last game, jumping, spinning, sliding, crawling, high jumping, and ground pounding. However, each time you defeat a boss, you get a new permanent upgrade added to your arsenal, such as the super ground pound, a double jump, a longer lasting spin attack, a flippin' fruit bazooka, and a speed dash. The super ground pound and super spin feel pretty situational to me, and the game basically has to come up with reasons to use them. The double jump is extremely useful, this game being a platformer and all. In fact, the double jump can be used in conjunction with both the high jump and the super spin, so you can use these tricks to get some serious hang time and air mileage. The bazooka seems almost too powerful to believe that they'd even give us this. You can use it to tag enemies from a distance, break crates out of your reach, even pick up spare pieces of Wumpa Fruit lying about you might have missed. The dash is mainly useful for time attack, which I'll talk about later. Stage progression has a new outer covering this time, but for all practical purposes, it's no different from Crash 2. Instead of 5 warp rooms with 5 stages, we have the Time Twister machine, which serves as one giant warp room with 5 hubs, each one with 5 stages. Each hub is sealed by an electrical force field, save for the first hub. Your goal is to enter each stage per hub, collect a crystal, and reach the end. When you enter a hub, all 5 stages are available, so you can do them in any order you prefer, and once you collect all 5 crystals, the boss stage becomes available, after which the force field guarding the entrance to the next hub is deactivated. As was the case before, your main objective is to gather the crystals. There's 25 in total, 1 in each stage, and they're almost always slapped somewhere in the middle of the stage, in plain sight, not really out of the way. As for the stages themselves, we have more of the same Crash platforming we've come to expect from the previous titles. The intensity of the platforming itself is around the same level of Crash 2, which means it's not too difficult. We don't run from boulders this time, but we do occasionally run from dinosaurs, so we can still check that running from something box off the list. Here's my main hang up with this game. This sort of platforming only makes up half the game. The other half is composed of riding some sort of vehicle or animal. We've got underwater stages where Crash puts on a scuba diving suit and swims to the end, which handle a lot like the jetpack stages of Crash 2, except entirely in 2D, racing stages where Crash gets on a motorcycle and races lab assistants in big cars to the end. We even see Crash flying around in an old airplane in all range, shooting down targets or racing other planes through giant rings. And that's just Crash. One big new innovation is that you can occasionally play as Crash's cute little sister, Coco. She does things like ride a baby tiger along the Great Wall of China, ride a jet ski around pirate ships in all range. She even gets to turn at the airplane and shoots down a few targets of her own. Coco's gameplay makes up just under a quarter of the game. All of this is fun in its own right, but in my not so humble opinion, it strays from what drew me to Crash in the first place: platforming. That's what the games were marketed as, that's what Crash was known for. Now I realize that the first two games occasionally had some of this alternative gameplay, but it was used so sparingly. This time it's half of the game, it's 50% of the game. Besides, I would have loved to see Coco get some platforming of her own with her own spin attack and everything. I know, you get that in the Insane Remake trilogy, but I wanted this 20 years ago. No wonder Naughty Dog gave us something so game-breaking like the bazooka. You barely have any stages in which you can use it. The boss fights are what you'd expect. Avoid your enemy's attacks and wait for an opening to strike. I will say that the fights seem much more close-up and personal this time, often you getting right up in their business and spinning. The most unique is the fight with Engine, which is also the only boss fight in which you play as Coco. You're flying in a spaceship in outer space, shooting lasers at Engine's mech, you have a health bar, he has open spots, it's basically a Star Fox boss. I do like that in the second phase, the baby tiger, his name is Purah by the way, docks with your ship and gives you twin lasers. Doesn't really change anything in the long run, but it's nice to have a friend. The final boss isn't terribly difficult, but it is much more epic and satisfying than that piece of garbage Crash 2 tried to pass off as a final boss, with you going toe-to-toe with Cortex while avoiding the twin masks as they battle for power. Once you've collected all 25 crystals and beat the final boss, the game sorta kinda not really ends. But as was the case with the previous two games, we have gems to collect. Like Crash 2, there are 42 in total, and every stage has at least one clear gem that you acquire by breaking every single crate in the stage, while several stages have a secondary gem that you must acquire by some other means. As usual, we have color gems that open up secret pathways in certain stages. Something new this time around is Time Attack mode. When you enter a stage that you have already retrieved a crystal from, you'll see a clock at the beginning. Grab the clock to initiate Time Trial mode, where your goal is to reach the end of the stage as fast as you can. If you get there quick enough, you win a relic. For every 5 relics you collect, a new time portal is activated in the secret warp room. There are 5 portals altogether, 3 leading to completely new stages, each with gems and relics to collect, and the other 2 leading to hidden areas of existing stages where you can grab the secondary gems and stuff. Once you've collected all 25 crystals, 42 gems, and 28 relics, all portals shut down save for the final boss, which you must fight a second time, after which you will have 100%. This fight is literally the same as it was the first time, nothing has changed except for the intro and ending. Another hang-up for me is how the secondary gems are handled. Part of what made Crash 2 resonate so much with me was the many obscure and clever ways these gems were concealed and the out-of-the-box methods you had to resort to acquire them. Not just the gems, but some of the crates as well. We had to do things like jump down pits, walk through fake walls, touch what looked like nitro crates, keep our eyes peeled for hidden teleporters, even reach the end of a stage without breaking a single crate. In this game, the secondary gems are just lazily tucked away in some corner that shouldn't be too difficult to find. It just never felt as satisfying as before. I will say though, I appreciate that the 5th stage of the 5th hub, Bug Light, works just like Spaced Out from Crash 2, in that you'll need all 5 color gems to reach the secondary gem. Also, the bonus rounds are back and they work just like they did in Crash 2. The Skull Roots are back as well, but there's not nearly as many, only 3 as a matter of fact. Let's talk a little bit about Time Trial. When you grab the floating clock at the beginning of the stage, Time Trial mode is initiated. All Wumpa Fruits and 1-Ups are removed from the stage and almost all crates are emptied. Aku Aku masks still remain, quite a few of them, but no checkpoints, so if you die, you're booted back to the beginning. Thankfully, you don't lose any lives in this mode. You can also pause the game and restart the stage if you like. Some crates are transferred into numbered gold crates. Breaking these crates freezes the clock for a number of seconds indicated by the number on the crate. The 1 crate's freeze time for 1 second, 2 freezes for 2, and 3 freezes for 3. If you make it to the end of the stage and meet the target time, you'll receive a relic. There's actually 3 different types of relics depending on how fast you make it. The 3rd place target time gives you a sapphire relic, 2nd place gives you a gold, and 1st place gives you a platinum. It's hard enough to get gold on some of these stages, I can't imagine the stunts you gotta pull to get platinum. To reach 100%, all you need are the sapphire relics along with the previously discussed crystals and gems, but if you manage to get gold or platinum relics on every stage, you can actually surpass 100%. Let me go ahead and say that I'm not a huge fan of the relic concept at all. I wouldn't have a problem with it if it was just an optional thing for bonus points, but just that the time attack is required for 100% makes it seem like a bit of an ordeal. Interestingly enough, there are 2 ultra secret stages, the entrances of which do require some creative imagination to discover. These stages have gems and relics to collect, although I'm not certain if they have sapphire or gold relics. Literally any time I've done time attack on these stages, I've always gotten platinum. Anyway, the gems and relics for these stages are not required for 100% ending. They are completely optional. If you do collect them, however, as well as the rest of the gems and crystals, as well as the gold and or platinum relics of every single stage, you can walk away with a whopping 105%. Mathematics be damned. The rewards for such a score include a legit fireworks display in the warp room, as well as a somewhat amusing Easter egg. Even though Crash was created and developed in the good old US of A, it ended up being pretty big in Japan. So much so that they had a market for all sorts of cool Crash memorabilia, such as artwork of the games and characters and actual tiki masks resembling Aku Aku. Apparently somebody somewhere in Japan attempted to make a Crash plush doll and, it's not, I mean if you tilt your head slightly and close one eye, but anyway, Naughty Dog took this badly designed Crash knockoff and inserted it into this game under the name of Fake Crash. You can find him in the stages of Toad Village and Making Waves after you've reached 105%. This is about the only secret in this game that I was not aware of until the internet told me years later. so far as I know. But hey, remember what I said about that random lab assistant in the last game. The crate and Wumpa Fruit systems work just like they have every time. The 10-in-1 crates have been tweaked slightly, now spitting 2 pieces of fruit per bounce, so you only need to bounce off of them 5 times. There are also occasionally steel checkpoints, usually in secret detours that don't contain any wooden crates to break, but are somewhat lengthy, and the developers didn't want to punish you by sending you too far back should you wipe out there. A new crate in this game is the timer crate. It'll constantly switch back and forth between empty and full of Wumpa Fruit, and sometimes it may also switch to a 1-up or Aku Aku mask. Whichever icon is on it when you break it determines what you get, but once you get close to it, it begins to switch through faster and faster, and if you wait too long, it'll turn into an unbreakable steel crate, which is what you don't want to happen, as you will have screwed yourself out of the primary gem. The graphics are much like the last game. The characters use the same character models in Crash 2, and most of the animations are identical. Crash does have a few new animations, certainly plenty of new dying animations, but shockingly, he's lost some of the extra animations that added charm to Crash 2. No longer does he flail his arms about wildly when standing over the edge of a pit. No longer does he turn around and look at what's chasing him in terror. And no longer does he shiver in rainy or snowy environments. Not having these animations anymore isn't a game breaker by any means, but they gave the last game a bit more life. Oh well. The animations for the villains during the cutscenes isn't quite as expressive as Crash 2, but they're still really good. The music was once again composed by Josh Mansell, however it's worthy to note one of the guys on the production team, Mark Mothersbaugh. You know him, trust me, you do. Remember that really cheesy 80s song, Whip It?
When something's going wrong, you must whip it. Now whip it into shape it up, get straight.
That was him, or at least the band he was in. He's also composed the music for several different films, including, but not limited to, the Lego Movie and Thor Ragnarok. Anyway, the music in this game isn't quite as good as Crash 2 in my opinion, but it's still a lot better than that of Crash 1. The main theme is catchy and sets the tone for the whole game, something that Crash 2's soundtrack lacked. As usual, the different stage types have their own themes that are shared among the stages of those types, with one exception. Bye Bye Blimps and Mad Bombers are the only instances in which Crash and Coco share a stage type, so there is a very subtle music difference between the two themes. Most of the tracks are fun enough and fit the environments and times they represent. In Crash 2, the bonus round and gem/skull root tracks were different arrangements of that stage's music, but in this game the bonus rounds share one theme and the gem/skull roots share another. They're good themes, and the bonus music is based on the main theme of the game, and they're played with different sounding instruments to suit the stage type, but it just seems a tad lazy compared to what we got in Crash 2. Oh well. The boss music is good. Tiny, N. Gin, and Cortex have rearranged versions of their themes from previous games, while Dingodile and Entropy have fresh new themes that suit them. Yes, I love this game. Yes, I have a huge amount of nostalgia for it, but at the end of the day, it just doesn't resonate with me in the same way that the previous two did. Still, it is a worthy successor of the previous two, and a fitting end for the initial Crash trilogy, as it were. After this, Crash seemed to wander a bit. He continued with 2 more titles on the PS1, but it seemed all eyes were on a new player who had just recently entered the arena, one who would take Crash's place as the mascot for the Sony PlayStation, and this game even gave him a proper introduction. Up, up, down, down, left, right, square.
Looks like I've got some things to do.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching my review of Crash Bandicoot Warped. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like and subscribe to the channel to see more reviews like this one. Also remember to check out my music on Spotify, iTunes, and Amazon. Links to everything in the description. And as always, have a fantastic rest of your day. Pieces!